All right, welcome to the first episode of the 0 to 100 podcast. Name TBD. It's definitely not going to be what I just said, but we'll see. So, my name is Travis Dalrymple, and I've been a CrossFit online coach for almost 2 years now. I've been in the CrossFit world for almost a decade, call it, maybe like 8, 9 years. And I just wanted to share my story and what the purpose of this podcast is going to be moving forward. And the goal is to help people, get them to realize where they're at now, get them to give themselves a little bit more credit, and get them to understand that they have plenty of time left to hit their goals, no matter what they may be. But first, I need to explain to you how I went from where I was to where I am today, because it has been an insane, crazy journey, unlike anything else that you've probably heard of. And I don't say that in a arrogant manner. I say that in a manner that, like, looking back on my life, shit's been kind of crazy. So I'm going to tell you about it. So this is the story of how I went from a college dropout to running a successful online coaching company. I don't know how long this episode is going to be by any means, but I'm going to try to keep it under 20 minutes. If it goes over, I'll probably just chop this up into 2 podcasts, most likely, because I am going to tell a little bit more detailed of a version than I have told in the past. So let's jump back in time to 2007, I believe. I went to Virginia Tech, which is in the southwestern tip of Virginia. I went there because my brother went there. Honestly, if we're really going to be blunt about it, I went down to visit him a couple times. I really enjoyed it. I liked the people there, and that was my first experience in Virginia, and those people are just lovely if you've never been. So I decided that I was going to go to Virginia Tech, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. So this was 2007. This was like the brink of Facebook and social media and all that shit. So you could only have so much research going into these things. Now it's totally different. But I went for building construction because I call myself a builder. I like building things. I like taking things apart and putting them back together. It's just always been a part of who I am, and I still really enjoy doing it to this day. So I went for building construction, but as I was there, I discovered that I had no idea what I was doing, as most college students don't when they're 18 years old. Like, the fact that we expect people to choose a path and determine the rest of their lives at 18 when you're still trying to figure out who you are as a person is obnoxious. That's a side tangent, perhaps a topic for another podcast. But I soon discovered that I really hated the building construction major because it's not about building things. It's about managing how to build things, which, definitely not the same thing by any means. So as I got farther and farther, I started to get more miserable and more miserable, unfortunately. And I started to resent the concept of college because I knew deep down that something was off and that it wasn't for me. I felt like I wasn't supposed to be there, even though I really enjoyed the school itself. Like, Virginia Tech is an amazing place. If you've never been and you have a chance to go, definitely go. But the school academic side of it just didn't do it for me. And I really wish it did, but, I'm kind of glad it didn't at this point in my life. During this time, my brother joined Pi Kappa Alpha, which is a fraternity on campus. I ended up following in his footsteps because he was already in it, so there was no reason for me not to join it, to be really honest with you. So I got in and started making some friends, and that was awesome. I mean, I love my fraternity. It got me to the point where I am today, which I'll explain to you in a moment. So during my time in Pike, which is just short for Pi Kappa Alpha down at Virginia Tech, there's this like annual talent show that a sorority throws for its philanthropy event. So this was 2009, I believe, and I think it would have been in the spring, fairly positive. So each year, fraternities and sororities and random groups of social networks get together and they compete in this talent show. So we also decided to do that. And this was my first semester in the fraternity at this point. And we found this black light illusion dance, cool looking thing on YouTube. And this was like, 2009 YouTube. So things were very, very different. We took that concept and kind of made it our own. And we did this black light dance illusion crazy thing with 16 of us on stage. And I know you're like, where the hell is this going? So someone happened to film that particular performance and they put it on the good old internets on YouTube. And it got, I believe at the time it was about 500,000 hits. I have no idea what it has to this day. I imagine it's in the couple millions by now, but it went viral, as they say. And that was kind of the end of that. We didn't really care. We thought it was a cool thing, but whatever, what's going to come up from that? So one night, this is probably 6 months later, someone drunkenly submitted it to America's Got Talent as a joke because one of the comments on the video said to do that. So, 3 a.m., someone's like, hey, man, we should put it in there. So we did. A couple days later, a couple weeks later, I don't really remember at this point, a wonderful man named Nigel reached out from America's Got Talent and said, oh, we saw your video. We loved it. We want to fly you to New York City. What? Like, what the fuck are you talking about, Nigel? Like, who is this? This is some sort of joke, right? Turns out it wasn't a joke. They were dead serious. The problem was we didn't have a group. We didn't have a thing because we just did that talent show because it was fun and we were in college and that's what you did. So the guy that got that email or phone call, his name is Greg. Greg sent out an email to the fraternity. And it said, this is what just happened. Who wants to do this thing? If you want to do it, come to the frat house on this day at this time, and we'll try it. So 13 guys showed up. Well, 12, 13 being Greg. And we just had 13 random dudes standing in a room going, all right, I guess we're going to try to do this thing. So we had to make a 90-second routine. Now, keep in mind, this is a bunch of college guys. I think I was 20 at the time. Yeah, I wasn't 21 yet. Excuse me. Trying to figure out how to dance, how to build things, how to do X, Y, and Z. Luckily for us, almost everyone in the group was an engineer of some sort. So our specialty, so to speak, was, all right, we can put things together. We can make these props. We can find these outfits, whatever. But how the hell do we put together a dance? So we ended up doing like a very robotic, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, a very robotic style of dance where it's like, okay, you're moving your body part here or there. Like it's very, very rigid dancing. My buddy Ben is going to listen to this and he's going to slap me in the face for not remembering what it's called. It's been a while since I've been a part of the dance community. So anyway, we did that because we had no rhythm and we had no ability to be fluid in our movements. So we were as rigid as possible so we could replicate each other. It took us probably a month to come up with a full 90-second routine, which is what was required of us. So we all flew to New York City with this 90-second routine. And for almost everyone in the group, I think it was their first time in Manhattan. And if you've ever been as a 20-year-old, that shit is very, very overwhelming, without a doubt. So, we're exploring Manhattan. We get to, I think it was the Paramount Theater, or we were staying at the Paramount. Now I can't remember. God, it has been over a decade, so that part is a little foggy. So we're in the theater, we're on the stage, we're about to perform this thing. We walk by the host, who is Nick Cannon, and we go on stage to perform this thing. Mind you, the judges at the time were Howie Mandel, Sharon Osbourne, and Pierce Morgan. So we walk on stage, they shut off all the lights in the building and in the theater, and we do our thing for 90 seconds. When we finish, there's just a moment of silence, and then the crowd just erupted in cheers and applause and screaming. Like they absolutely loved it. So if you go back and find that video, and I'll link it below, if you want to check it out, you can see like what my friends now refer to as baby Trav, because I look like a toddler, even though I kind of still look like a toddler. So the judges were like, "Hey, who the hell are you guys? That was incredible. You're going to Vegas." So after we got through with that reality check and those panic attacks, we were on our way to Las Vegas, and this was again, I think it was 2009. So about a month later, we're in Vegas. Bunch of 21. I think I was 21 by then. Yeah, I could drink. So that was May of 2009, I believe, maybe 2010, one of those two. And now there's a bunch of college kids in Vegas. And to make this story a little bit shorter, we just kept getting through round after round after round. And our performance got better and better, except for the space one that we did. If you ever find that, just ignore it. And the guys in the group will know what I'm talking about and get a good laugh out of that one. But we ended up in Los Angeles, and that's where you do the live versions of the show. So now you have 2 minutes, I'm pretty sure it was 2 minutes, to put on your performance, and you only have a week to create it. So once we got to the live rounds, we were living in LA for about a month, and each week we had to come up with a new performance. So we kept getting farther and farther and farther until we were in the top 4. Our last performance, which I thought was one of the coolest ones we ever did, we ended up placing 3rd on the entire show. We got beat by a 10-year-old girl that sang opera. Her name is Jackie Ivanko. She's a sweetheart. If you Google her stuff, you'll be blown away. And we got beat by a drunk guy named Michael Grimm who sang jazz. He has fallen off the face of the earth, as far as I know. And the person that got 4th was named Mr. Poppycock. He did drag and also sang opera. A little bit of a weird combination for the top 4. So we get 3rd on the show. The show ends. They take us into a room immediately and talk to us about not hurting ourselves because we didn't get 1st. So we laughed in their face and said, "What the hell are you talking about? This has been the most amazing experience of our lives. Like, this is truly incredible." A couple hours later, we come to find out, and this was all kept from us because we were still competing on the show, that America's Got Talent Live is going on tour for 2 months across the United States, visiting 24 cities and performing in those 24 cities. And they asked us to be a part of it. So the next part of our journey was touring the country on a tour bus to 24 different cities over the course of about 2 months. Now, everything that you've heard about tour in general is pretty much true, especially when you just turned 21. It's pretty spot on. We just partied. We did our job. There's really no rules besides don't go onto stage drunk. They pay for your meals. You're living on the tour bus or hotels. It was one of the most incredible experiences of my entire life. And I have some of the best memories of my life from that tour with those 12 guys and 9 other acts that we were on tour with. So, 2 months goes by. Now it's November 2010, I believe. We get back from tour. And mind you, at this point, we had to take off of college for the fall semester because it's just not possible to be on tour for 2 months and stay in college. It didn't make any sense, especially at the time when the internet wasn't really what it is today. We might have been able to do it today, but I still would have taken off. We get back and we're assigned to a management company called Octagon, and Octagon assigned us a manager named Mike, who was actually still with us to this very, very day. Mike's the man. He might be listening to this. So Mike tells us that we have some corporate events lined up that he's booked for us, and we had no idea what the hell a corporate event was. A corporate event is when large companies spend stupid amount of money to just swindle their employees and provide them with entertainment. And we were entertainment. We were live, or we were fresh off the show, and people wanted to see our stuff. So we started doing corporate gigs, which pay rather well. So 12 guys or 13 guys have now basically started a company and are now all entrepreneurs. And I'm sure you can imagine the fun of 13 guys with equal say in a business with no leadership. Things got a little spicy every now and again. So we start doing corporate gigs, and we still do those even till today. I mean, I recorded this episode October 2020. We haven't had a corporate event in about a year though because of COVID. So the entertainment industry and that part of the world is kind of dead at the moment. But the point is that we've been still doing corporate events for at least a decade. So we start doing corporate events. We're traveling all over the country. We're traveling all over the world. And now we're actually getting paid to do it. We went to China a few times. I've been to Moscow, Vienna, London, Mexico. I don't know if you would count Canada as international, but you get it. And all over the US. And over time, it became very clear that there's only one of two ways that something like this could continue. And it was either someone had to take the reins and stop going to college, or the whole thing was going to die. So a few of us decided that was going to be us, and we took the leap of faith in ourselves while some of the others went back to college, which is totally fine. They wanted to be engineers or whatever their respective degrees were. And nobody holds that against them by any means. But I knew for myself that college wasn't the answer. And this thing, which was called fighting gravity, was the way out. And this is how I could get away from just this like cycle of what the hell am I doing with my life at this college in this degree? Like, I don't want to be a part of this. I don't fit in with this stuff, and it's not who I am. So I knew this was a way out. So I remember making this decision, and it was 2012 by this point. I was sitting at my desk in Virginia Tech at my townhouse, and I had to make the decision pretty much that day whether I was going to sign up for classes or not. And mind you, I hadn't really told my mom what I was going to do yet, so that's a whole other story. But you can imagine how that went. I was sitting at my desk, and I remember watching this video. I can't remember the name of the guy who says it, but the quote is, you have to sacrifice what you are in order to get, you have to sacrifice who you are in order to be who you're going to become. So I was a college kid that was half-assing college and failing. Like, I didn't care at that point because I was more worried about our corporate events, of course. So I had to sacrifice that person to become the person that would be an entrepreneur that ran his own business and tried to make this thing for what it was, which in our minds was a full-length show that we were going to run in New York City and eventually Las Vegas. So think Blue Man Group, Cirque du Soleil, the same concept. That's what we were trying to do. So I dropped out of college, and that, I think, was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make in my life. But to this day, I don't regret it, and I never will, because it got me to where I am today, to sitting at my desk in the middle of Jersey recording this podcast. So it was an incredible decision, and I'm very grateful that I had the strength to make it at the time, and I didn't just go along with what everyone else thought I was supposed to do. So once I dropped out of college, the next part of the journey was moving to New York City. And I think I'm going to leave that for episode number 2 because it's a good transition point. But we started working with some producers, and they lived in New York, and they said, hey, if you want to make a full-length show, you got to move here. So that's what 2 of us did. And I will happily tell you the rest of that story on episode 2 of this podcast. We're going to talk about what happens when you move to New York and you're broke, what happens when you stumble into a CrossFit gym, and, eventually leaving that CrossFit gym to take the next step in my career, in my life. So again, my name's Travis Dalrymple. If you want to follow me on Instagram, it's at Trav Dalrymple, TravDalrymple. I'm sorry that my last name is impossible to spell, but it's probably in the show notes below as well, or show notes below too. And yeah, super happy you guys decided to listen in. It's my first episode, and I'm excited to see where this whole thing goes. Who knows what's going to happen? But I think the next 2 or 3 episodes here are just going to be about how I got to where I am today and what's happening next and how I'm helping people all over the world on their weight loss journey. So I will talk to you guys next week.